Today, we got something real good. I believe what I have is valuable. And I think what we do in life a lot of times is we judge the things that we do based on the response we think we will get from people. And at the end of the day, it's all about acceptance. We think that people will accept us if we deliver our messages, if we do what they want us to do. Hey, Joel, how you doing? Good to see you. And so what happens to people is as I've said before in the past, people will project something, they will project themselves based on what they believe that the other person or other people in their lives or people that they want to be in their lives will accept. What is acceptable to them. And then foregoing what is acceptable to you. And so thus you have a conundrum. And that conundrum is there's a war that's going on inside. The person you are versus the person versus the person you think they want you to be. And so we run into this situation where we are not clear about who we are. We've been projecting so long, projecting what other people want us to be, doing the things that others want us to do, that we've forgotten who we are in the process. And if I ask a person, and many times I ask people this, I said, all right, so tell me 5 things about you that no matter what other people say, you ain't changing. All right. And a lot of times people don't know. They don't know. They like, well, I'm not going to change this. I'm not going to do this. And I said, okay, then, all right, so tell me, so these are your core values? When I say your core values are the things that you don't compromise on. The things that and I say, have you ever compromised on them? They say yes. And I say, why have you compromised on them in the past? You compromised on them, and they say, ultimately we get around to, I compromised on them because I thought that, hey, I'm gonna compromise this, and then the other person that I'm with will like me, accept me, want to be with me. And thus, they never know who you are. And so you find yourself in a situation where you're giving up things, you're becoming someone new, someone that you don't even know. All right, so I say all that I got into this conversation with someone recently. And the conversation they were talking about, and here's what she said. She was like, I want to have a relationship, but she says, I want to have a relationship, but I always say that I don't want to have a relationship, that I'm okay being me, I'm good, I'm by myself. And I said, and then she said, so we dug a little bit deeper, we went deeper. And then it came out that she said that I think that I am too old to have a relationship. Now, she was 55. And I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. I said, do you think there are people that are getting married in their 50s? She said, yes. I said, are people getting married in their 60s? She said, yes. I said, even in their 70s? She said, yes. And I said, because people are getting married, that means they're finding love, right? At this age. She said, yes. And I said, now, do you think that many of them thought they were too old? And she thought about it and she said, maybe, yeah. And I said, but however, their paradigm shifted and realized that there were other people out there in their age group, in their age range or whatever, or who would be willing to date them and that were looking for love too. And she said, wow, yeah. She said, and I said, so the reality is, it's not that people can't find love. It's just that you have limiting beliefs that are blocking you from finding it. Is that fair? She was like, well. I said, no, let's go deep. Let's get real now. And then she says, yeah, you're right. I do have limiting beliefs. And I said, let's name them. So I said, let's start talking about it. She said, now, one of the limiting beliefs I have, there are no good men out there. That's a limiting belief because there are good men out there because people are still getting married. There's another limiting belief. People are not going to get married at this age. That's a limiting belief because people are getting married at this age. Another limiting belief is that nobody will accept me for me. A limiting belief. I said, do you accept you for you? She was like, huh? I said, do you accept you for you? I said, the truth is you told me before where you have to try to become someone new that is acceptable to everybody else. So that lets me know that there's a part of you that doesn't accept you. And she was like, wow, I never thought about it. So I took her on this journey and I said, why not you? And the title of today's session is, why not you? How to have the relationship of your dreams, the relationship you desire. And so I said, why not you? And what happens is, I said, let me tell you the 5 things that you have to be willing to do. You have to be willing to do 5 things. And that's all, just 5. And they're not that hard, but we don't know consciously what they are. So I'm going to give them to you today. 5 things you have to do is, number 1 is to have the relationship you desire. You have to have a true willingness, a true desire first. And you have to have a true desire and make that intention known. So what happens is people say things like, I don't need nobody. I don't have to have nobody. I'm all right in a relationship by myself. Okay, cool. You are. But you're only saying that because to justify the situation that you're in. So I always tell people, let God know your intention. Let the universe know your intention. Speak that intention, even if you speak it to yourself. But don't contradict yourself out loud and say, I don't need nobody. I'm Miss Independent. And what you're doing is, what you're saying is contradicting what you desire. And when that contradiction happens, what happens to you is they're opposing energies. You can't have and have not at the same time. Notice what I said. I can't have and have not at the same time, because you're thinking that you desire, but then you're thinking that you won't have it. Those are competing thoughts, competing energies, competing vibrations, and you can't manifest that in the same time. In the same time and space, it can't happen. And so what I always tell people, even if you don't believe it. And so here's my lesson for today. There are 3 things you have to have: desire, willingness to do the work, and belief. Now, normally people think, and the reason I numbered these the way that they are is because people think belief comes first. Belief doesn't come first. And so what happens is, a lot of times when people start stuff, they don't necessarily believe they're going to finish it. I always say, don't worry about belief. Create the desire. Just desire it first. Have the desire first, because the desire is the seed that you planted. And then we're going to start watering that seed. People think that I believe is coming first, because how can you believe something if you've never seen it, if you've been conditioned your whole life to believe the opposite of it? I said, don't worry about belief. Belief will come. Belief comes, number 1, with having a desire to want it. Desire, have your earnest intention to want it. That's the first step. And then the second step isn't even belief. The second step is willingness to do the work required. Now watch this, y'all. Okay, so I use sports as an example. And I use sports as an example because at the end of the day, many people some of them wanted to be great. Kobe wanted to be great. LeBron wanted to be great. There are other people out here in the streets who wanted to be great. The difference is, first they had the desire. Okay. But then step 2, the willingness to do the work. See, I always say this. I said, listen, to have what others don't have, you have to be willing to do what others are unwilling to do. So if I say willingness to do the work, that means willingness to understand how to communicate in relationships. Willingness to understand how to put out the brand messages that you're putting out to attract the right people instead of the wrong people. Willingness to understand what you did wrong in your last relationship. Willingness to become better, to be better so you can attract better. All right. And so most people say, I'm me, I'm going to be me, this is me, and I am not going to change. And so if you don't change, if you're unwilling to change, then you will continue attracting the same kinds of people, the same person in a different body all day long, all over again. And so the part of changing is healing. And healing means I got to deal with the things that have affected me in the past. I have to deal with the issues of, I was molested, but I don't want to deal with that. So what I do is I bury that. And then what you don't know is when you bury that, it grows into something. Every seed planted grows into something, y'all. And what happens is that if whatever we water that seed is what determines what it's going to grow into. Sometimes that seed grows into anger, frustration, resentment, all of those things. And so I always tell people, if you're going to have what you want, what you don't have, number one, you have to have a desire. Number two, the willingness to figure out the areas in your life that you need to improve. The willingness, the areas that you need to do the work on. And so if you are unwilling to do the work, you won't have what you desire, period. And so I get people all the time say, Ken, would you do, I need coaching, but I don't really need coaching because I don't really want to deal with it. It's everybody else's fault. Everybody else's fault. And I always say, well, look, let's discuss your last 3 to 5 relationships. Tell me what happened. She would tell me what happened. And I say, well, what's the common denominator in all of those relationships? You. You are the common denominator. And I'm not saying it's your fault, but what you haven't done is there's a part of you allow this type of individual to come in your life. There's a part of you that believes that I have to allow this individual into my life. And if you're allowing that individual into your life, there's a part of you that's broken because you believe that this individual is good for you, when in fact, it's not that, I always say, good women, good women, all women attract good men, bad men, and different men. All of them. The difference is that the women who have high caliber, who decide they don't tolerate that, they don't let them stay. But you let them stay because there's a part of you that believes either I can't get somebody else, this is the best I'm gonna do, or whatever, and you compromise, and thus you keep getting the same thing. So you got to be willing to find out what that is. You see? And then number three is, then after you've done the work, after you have the desire, you've changed the things you need to change, and then belief comes. Then the belief that you can or you deserve it. A lot of people don't have a relationship because deep in their subconscious mind, they don't believe they deserve it. They don't believe they deserve it. They say they do. They say they do, but they don't truly believe they deserve it. And so because they don't truly believe they deserve it, what they do is compromise the very person they have become, who they are. They will compromise who they are because on a deep level, they don't believe they deserve to have that relationship. They don't believe it. And so whenever you don't believe something, what happens is when some semblance of it comes into your life, what you do is you accept that. You accept that. And so because you accept that, then it's you. It is you. It is not them. And so you don't believe that you deserve it. And and a lot of times belief comes from conditioning our subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind belief is easier said than done, but I always tell people, belief will come when you have the desire, the willingness to do the work. The belief then comes later. Motion creates emotion. Motion creates emotion. Kobe Bryant didn't take the last shot all those times because he took the last shot because he had an intention, he had a desire to be great. He did the work. He shot 1,000. He made 500 shots a day before he left practice. Now think about it. Some days he had to shoot 1,000. Some days he had to shoot 2,000. Some days he probably had to shoot 3,000. If the minimum is 1,000 shots to shoot 50%. But he says now the belief comes because I've done it over and over again. Because I've done it over and over again, and I see glimpses of greatness. When you are willing to change, God will start to show you glimpses of what's to come. And so, you ever been on a path of changing, and all of a sudden, like you've been on a weight loss journey, and you look at yourself in the mirror. Now, the scale may not move, but you say, I look different. My clothes fit different. This right here, I grab this roll and I can't get as much in my hand because it's gone. I see the difference. He will show you glimpses of what's to come. And those glimpses, you don't see the whole picture yet. It's so that you have faith, and that faith can stretch you to the possibility of what can come next. And so I say, all you need is the belief of a mustard seed. The faith of a mustard seed is rooted in that belief. That's all you need. But you got to be willing to desire, do the action, and then the belief comes. And number 4, why not you? Number 4 is you got to be willing to work through conflict. And see, some of us are averse to conflict. Some of us are averse to you're conflict averse. You will avoid conflict all day long. You become people pleasers. And so what you'll do is you sweep it under the rug and it eats at you. It eats at you. See, when I have a conflict with somebody, when I have a conflict, when I have things that bother me, I don't like it to fester, because what happens is I like to deal with it head on, even if the other person does not agree with what I'm saying. But I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for the other person. I'm doing it because I know every seed planted grows into something. Every seed. But you're willing to hold on to something. You're willing to hold on to stuff in the past relationships. You're willing to hold on to a lot of things, but because you've never dealt with the conflict. You don't want to talk to people about conflict. Even in your relationships today, there are people in your life that you shouldn't even be in your life. They should not even be there. But you're afraid to deal with the conflict because conflict causes us to be uneasy. And let me say this. Everything that has arisen in this country, everything you will manifest will do so out of conflict, out of disagreement. Nothing was ever built. You think the people that built YouTube agreed on everything? No. You think the people that built Google agreed on everything? No. And so, y'all, accept conflict as a necessary part of growth. It is. Me and my wife don't agree on everything. But most of us think that life is centered around no conflict, and so you avoid conflict. You avoid conflict. Just because you avoided it doesn't mean it's not there. It's simply that you avoided it, but it's still there. You feel me? It's still there. And so until you're willing to deal with conflict in relationships, it's not going to happen. Y'all, great relationships are not devoid of conflict. Great relationships happen through conflict. How you resolve conflict, how you get over conflict. That's what great relationships are based on. But the reason we want to deal with conflict is they make us feel different inside. They don't make us feel good inside. The energy from conflict creates a turmoil inside. But the truth is, the energy from not dealing with conflict is a slow boil. Like they did this study about putting a frog in water. And they say if you boil some water and you put the frog in the hot water, the frog will jump right out. But if you put a frog in cold water and you turn the heat up gradually, the frog will boil to death. The reason they say that is because that's what conflict is like. It's simmered up and you boil to death in it. So what I say is, listen, deal with it. You got to be willing. You can have the greatest relationship. You can. But you have to be willing to deal with it. Number 5. And the last one for today is, number 5 is simply this. You have to be willing to question everything that you believe. See, if you're ever going to have, and I started this by saying, why not you? But the only way you're going to have a great relationship, because there is somebody out there for you. Don't ever believe that. God has made provision He's made provision for your vision. The truth is, but you have to be willing to question everything you believe. I've had to question everything I believed in business to shift my business over to the internet, to shift my business from abroad. Now I'm doing business with this screen, just like y'all looking at me. I had to shift my paradigm. I had to question everything I've ever believed about marketing and branding. Now I have a new paradigm. And you've got to be willing to have a new paradigm. You got to be willing to question everything you believe. You got to be willing to question that all men cheat. That's bullshit. All men don't cheat. You got to be questioning that won't nobody accept me. That's bullshit. That's in your head. Okay? You got to be willing to question everything that you believe. And only when you're in a position to question what you believe and say, you know what? Why do I believe this? Is this true? Just because you believe it don't mean that it's a fact. Don't mean that it's true because you believe it. It's real to you. I get it. It is real to you. However, because it's real to you doesn't make it a fact. Because it's real to you, because you believe, somebody could have told you a lie a long time ago. That's how rumors get started, y'all. Somebody starts a rumor off, then they tell somebody else, and then 20 iterations down, it's totally different from the thing that started off, and you're like, wow, now people believe things that aren't true. That's what's going on in our political scene, y'all. People have told lies so long that people start to believe it because they don't know what's real and what's false. And so what I'm going to tell you is this. You have to be willing. And a lot of us not. That's a hard thing. That's a hard thing. I had to be willing to question things I believed about myself. That's why I've been able to change. And thus, I've gotten the things in my life that I've wanted. And I don't get everything I want, but I get a lot of it. I'm also attracting the things that I want in my life because I'm willing to question everything that I've ever believed about business, about relationships, about all these things. Y'all, we're constantly evolving. And if you're not evolving, you're not growing. And so what I'm saying to you is you can have the relationship of your dream. You can. You just got to be willing to do these 5 things. First, have an intent, desire. Second, be willing to do the work to make yourself better because you will attract people who are better when you're better. Number 3, be willing to believe something different because based on the work you've done. God will show you glimpses. Believe what you see. All right. Number 4, be willing to work through conflict because no relationship is going to work without conflict. And number 5, be willing to question everything you've ever believed, everything you've ever said, because some of that stuff is not true. Just because you believe it don't make it true. All right? That's my time. I'm Ken Canion, the host of Love, Lust, and Lies. And until tomorrow, you guys have a great day. Remember, every journey starts with one step. Take yours today.